Look, folks, yesterday I told you there would be a steady drip of information coming out detrimental to the deep state. Last night and into today, no difference to this. Continuing revelations that are taking out the very basis for everything that was done to counter Trump since 2015. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. Good to be with you. Email sam@whatsrightshow.com. Of course, you can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, @whatsrightsam. So, James Comey now in the hot seat, as we have discovered via declassified documents from the FBI that he was leaking to his friends in the media via an intermediary information damaging to Trump. Now, let's step back from this for a moment and appreciate the great irony of what's going on right now. These people, and I mean Clapper, I mean Comey, I mean Brennan, Schiff, Swalwell, the entire cabal of Get Trump Democrats, the deep staters, they first came up with nonsense basically masquerading as intel, things like the Steele dossier, which was a joke, and everybody knew it was a joke. It wasn't anything real, okay? So they come up with this intel, or things about Flynn, General Michael Flynn. For example, Flynn is a Russian agent, and somebody somewhere said something somewhere. And what they did, in order to give this the appearance, a veneer of credibility, they took this crap masquerading as intelligence information and gave it some of the highest levels of classification possible. The reason was, again, to give this stuff credibility, when it in fact had none. But by giving it this classification, then when they went out to leak it, then when they went to use their worthless crap, they could tell the media, this is really on the QT and very hush-hush. This is classified stuff, which makes people think, no, this has got to be credible. If it's super mega classified, it's got to be credible. Well, it wasn't. But now it's biting them in the rear because they released stuff that they classified in order for it to damage Trump. And they're all going to end up in prison for releasing classified information. So it's really, that is the sum and total of what's going on right now. Now let's take this apart bit by bit. The revelations, and again, I said this, it would be coming out over a period of time. There are, I believe this, there is a volume of evidence against the entire Obama machine. What do you want to call it? The deep state, the Obama machine, the Clinton machine, the anti-Trump cabal. But these people worked together. They conspired to build a fake and phony case against Trump in order to damage him politically. This ought not be okay to anybody, regardless of their party or political affiliation. Now, some of the usual suspects appear in this situation. The latest, of course, James Comey, who was FBI director from 2013 to 2017. He was fired by Trump in May of 2017, and he is a central figure in one of the FBI investigations into the leaking of classified information. Because here's what would happen. There would be an article in the newspaper, let's say, for example, in the New York Times. And the information, the article would contain stuff that was known to be classified. When such a thing occurs, the FBI goes and has to do an investigation. It's a matter of course. So they open an investigation. They go to the person writing the article. How did you learn about this? Well, protecting my sources, whatever. And what was wild is that actually a guy over at the New York Times, all right, the intermediary for Comey leaking this stuff was a guy named Daniel Richman. He was a Columbia Law School professor, longtime confidant of Comey's, confidant. He was hired. Comey at one point hires him as a special government employee so that he can legally give him classified information and purportedly have conversations with this close confidant about things and matters over at the FBI. Remember, small aside here, remember when Trump made Elon Musk a special government employee? It was the same classification, and the world went bonkers. The media went nuts, criticized it day and night. And this sort of was all glossed over. But at any rate, he ends up being a conduit between Comey and the New York Times reporter, Michael Schmidt. Now, the investigation into these specific leaks got a fancy name, and it was called Arctic Haze. That was one of the 5 or 6 investigations going on nearly concurrently into all the various leaked stories. And a significant amount of resources were devoted to this. But what's absolutely wild is that sitting atop the pile was the director himself of the FBI. And there was, it seems, absolutely adequate evidence to bring charges against these individuals for receiving and disseminating protected information. But the FBI never did it. I think that's going to be the next shoe to drop. I think the next thing that's going to happen and come out here is all the folks inside the Department of Justice, above and beyond James Comey at the top of the FBI, who specifically suppressed any efforts to further investigate this, including, of course, Loretta Lynch at the time when she was still Attorney General under Obama in the last stages of her term, and then of course various folks inside Trump's administration who frankly were working against him. This will be very interesting. Now remember, every allegation that was made about Trump colluding with Russia, about Flynn being a Russian asset, about Flynn having a extramarital affair with the Russian spy, all the nonsense was disproven. We eventually had Robert Mueller's report. It came out. It was special counsel. In 2019, we finally get the whole report, and there was nothing there. And we know this. But what we knew by 2020, because, of course, you had Horowitz, Michael Horowitz, the DOJ Inspector General, who in 2019, late 2019, issued his own report. He criticized Comey's leaks. He already had him dead to rights. This already should have been prosecuted back then. But of course, the Department of Justice, Trump's Department of Justice, declined to prosecute. Because turns out Bill Barr was one of them. Remember also, Rod Rosenstein figures in all this. Was the Deputy Attorney General from 2017 to 2019. And Rosenstein's the one who, after Trump's wonderful Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, recused himself at the first sign of trouble, Rod Rosenstein stepped in and issued the Mueller memo, appointing Mueller as special counsel. And this happened the day after the New York Times published the story that Comey leaked to the New York Times. The Times, Comey, all these people, Schiff, Swalwell, working together in concert in a vast criminal conspiracy. Well, and I'll tell you, I think these people are all dead in the water. It is far worse than many even imagined. And one thing that is just my observation of this, my take on it is, I'm actually surprised at I'm surprised, A, how quickly this stuff is unfolding, and B, I'm also surprised that I believe the national attitude and appetite for justice is far more, let's say, hungry for these people to go down than I expected. It's starting to get very righteous, is my point. Because what they did was so bad and so egregious that it seems, frankly, and it's obviously an open and shut case, but it's something that Americans and even Democrats are beginning to turn on these people. I'm seeing, honestly, I'm seeing negative things said by Democrats, for example, about Adam Schiff. It's going to get ugly fast. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT, some reactions in the media to this. And the story, of course, having broken last night about Comey, John Solomon had a couple of appearances. So I want to get his direct takes on this to you. Stay tuned. Be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. We've got an action-packed show today. You do not want to miss a moment of it.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
All right, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Radio Network, at What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter, Sam at what'srightshow.com. So, John Solomon, he's the Just News founder. He is the guy who has been breaking these stories, and late last night, or in the evening after the program, about 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 or 8:30 or so in Eastern, he broke the story about Comey being the subject of an investigation into leaking, and that, in fact, it appears that Comey was leaking through an intermediary information to the New York Times and other media outlets to craft a conversation that cast him, Comey, in a good light and Trump in a bad one. Now, John Solomon was last night on Fox News, and he started explaining this pipeline, as it's being called, a leftist media pipeline via James Comey. It's enough to boil your blood.
Well, what you find out is that James Comey decided not to work through the FBI press office when he wanted to change the narrative in Washington, burnish his reputation against attacks from Democrats, and try to sully Donald Trump's reputation. If you remember, Democrats were mad that James Comey let out of the bag just before the election that there might be some new evidence in the Hillary Clinton email scandal. Hillary blamed Comey for throwing the election. She blamed the Russians for throwing the election. She blamed everybody but herself for throwing the election for her. But Comey was trying to rehabilitate that. And so he had an intermediary, a Columbia Law professor by the name of Daniel Richman, who the FBI confirmed and interviewed. And Richman said, yes, I used my relationship with a New York Times reporter named Michael Schmidt. He's one of the authors of the Pulitzer Prize winning package that President Trump is now suing over. And my goal was to improve negative stories about James Comey and to set a narrative, i.e., set the Russia collusion narrative.
Exactly. Now, by the way, a couple of things on this. Number one, it's not in dispute that this information ended up at the media in print. Like, that's not in dispute. It's also not in dispute that this information that was given to the media was, we know it was classified. We know it was improperly released. In other words, some of this information was classified, remains either classified, or was only very recently declassified. So the only conclusion, right, the only thing that this, purported deep investigation really didn't get was the conclusive identity of the leakers. But that's the part that we now know. We realize there's this guy, I mentioned him before the break. This is the go-between, a professor that was going to Michael Schmidt on behalf of his good friend, Jim Comey, and he was giving him all the stuff. His name is Daniel Richman. And the FBI went and talked to this guy. He went and talked to him, asked him questions about this. And he did not come out and give what one might call an equivocal denial. The FBI still didn't do anything. Listen to how John Solomon puts this.
At one point, the FBI noted, you met with James Comey. He gave you access to classified information. A short while later, you had a conversation with that New York Times reporter, and he ends up reporting something that appears to be classified. Did you do it? And he gives, I think, perhaps the most famous denial people will remember since Bill Clinton says it depends what the meaning of the word is when he tried to obfuscate whether he had an affair with Monica Lewinsky. He says, I can say, I don't think I confirmed the information. I can say with a discount that I didn't give him the classified information. With a discount means you got to give me some room. It's an extraordinary moment. The FBI clearly had strong suspicions that this was a potential backdoor for information, maybe classified information to get out to the media with James Comey's fingerprints on it. And they didn't go much further. They didn't put Comey before the grand jury, that we can tell. They didn't appear to put this gentleman, Daniel Richman, before the grand jury. And like Adam Schiff, as we told you last night, here they have an eyewitness whistleblower who said, I was in the room when he authorized leaks of intel. These end up being a dead end again.
So while the FBI, the intelligence community, and the media are chasing Trump and his purported collusion with Russia, real criminals embedded within the Democratic Party and the government establishment, whether you call it the deep state party, whatever you want to call it, are running amok and unfettered. And all you have is a few agents going around meeting with, okay, well, we got a crime here. What do we do? And it just died. So the next part of the story is going to be, in my view, why did it die? Who ordered this to go away? And this is where it's where it becomes conspiratorial, right? And by the way, I'm looking at the report. That's what it is. I mean, it's called Arctic Haze. It's the whole thing. The investigation was initiated 8/14/2017. I mean, just, it really, right at the very, what is this, 8 months into, if that, Trump's first term. I mean, I tell you, I have always qualified my disappointment with Trump in his first term and his first go around with the fact that he was, fighting a headwind. I've always said in Trump's first term, he didn't do what I really wanted him to do, but, big but, I understand he was fighting a few different fronts of absolute Democrat insanity. The more of this evidence that I see come forward, the more, first of all, the more sorry I feel for Trump, the more upset I am as an American voter that my vote, your vote, and every other person's vote that selected Donald Trump to be the president of the United States, to be sworn in January of 2017, all of our votes were canceled out, actually, by a relatively small group of individuals. These people, with power vested in them by virtue of their position and the public trust, betrayed everything they owed us, they owed our country, that they owed the executive branch of government. They betrayed it all. And that pisses me off. I bet it ticks you off too. Bet you're nodding along right now going, yeah, what's going to happen? I wasn't entirely sure that we were going to see heads rolling. I said, I think there's going to be arrests. I'm prepared to say I'm starting to believe that some of these people could very well end up convicted, because this is just far juicier and an all-encompassing story to present to a jury than any, one single, case or allegation that was leveled against, leveled by, for example, the Durham, prosecutions. All right, let's get to this when we come back. You don't want to miss this. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings and welcome to the What's Right Show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, right here on the station. Sam at what'srightshow.com. Behind the What's Right microphone, Sam Mirejovsky here, present and girded. Let me tell you, I am fired up, folks, as information comes out each day about the levels of criminality that people in positions of power engaged in over the past 9 years. John Solomon, who is the founder here of Just the News, he has been one of the, I think, real tip of the spear guys in the quest to get this information out to the press. Has been relentless in the pursuit of truth when it comes to what this cabal of anti-Trump conspirators were doing. Published a long piece last night, then made the media rounds. One of the things that he said yesterday on Fox resonated with me because Solomon mentions how there were really two tiers of justice. Two tiers of justice, right? How many Republicans went and sat in prison for example, refusing to cooperate with a subpoena in Congress? And we were lectured by the Democrats. Well, no one's above the law. You didn't show up. You got to go to jail. Get convicted of it, right? Navarro, Bannon, etc. Convicted of it. They went to sit. How many of these Democrats who did that and worse are still walking free? Well, not for long. So Solomon, here's what he says about the two tiers of justice. I think most of you will agree he's spot on.
Another reminder of a dual system of justice that the Justice Department had the last 6 years. These are documents that were never given to Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan confirmed that to me today. And we're just learning 8 years later, because of what Kash Patel turned over, that the FBI had all the evidence of how the false narrative of Russia collusion was spread across this country to the detriment of voters, to the detriment of President Trump's first campaign, and they did nothing about it.
So it seems, from this clip one, right, we are in agreement that there were rules for them and there were rules for us, and there are two different sets of rules. But the other thing interesting is apparently Jim Jordan, who had, as his role in Congress as a chairman of a committee investigating some of this stuff, had sought to get these documents, and apparently he sent out a subpoena, and none of these documents were turned over by the Biden people. Interesting. I don't think the statute is run on that. By the way, speaking of the statute of limitations, I have always been saying here that because these numerous acts of wrongdoing, right? Numerous instances of laws being broken occurred over a long period of time. And let's just say, for sake of argument, it goes back approximately 9 years. Now, some of it happened 9 years ago, some of it happened 2 years ago, right? Now, if you are trying to charge stuff that happened, let's say 8.5 years ago, 9 years ago, and there's a 5-year statute of limitations, you're going to run into a little bit of a problem, okay? Unless you are able to link and join up these acts as part of a whole conspiracy. This is where the Democrats got too clever by half, because they have refused to give up on the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. And they have continued to push it through the 2024 election, relying on the very lies that they created, they started, they gave the imprimatur of credibility, veneer of credibility, etc., via the classification process, running it through, laundering it through the CIA, for example. their bad acts, their laws broken, allegedly, 9 years ago, fall under and within the statute of limitations because acts have occurred as recently as a year ago, 2 years ago, that link the conspiracy together. Basically, by continuing this and pressing forward with it, they shot themselves in the foot. Now, as far as some of these lies, Solomon talks about, or these, well, this lying number one, but certainly releasing the classified documents. Solomon says that if it was done maliciously, there's a 10-year statute of limitations, and you can probably prove that. So nobody's out of the woods. And then Solomon says, but tomorrow more stuff is going to drop because we're going to ask the question about Hillary Clinton and that wonderful charity that her and Bill were running, the $1 billion charity that was their cash cow while she was the Secretary of State and running for president. Well, listen to this.
I think if Pam Bondi goes the grand jury route, that these are people that are going to be hauled before the grand jury. I want to remind people, most classified information statutes have a 5-year statute of limitations, but there is a provision that extends it to 10 years if it's willing and knowing. And there is some pretty clear evidence of a strong apparatus put in place to make these leaks occur, according to the FBI documents. I think a grand jury could go back and try to compel testimony and find out if it rises to the level of criminality. Tomorrow, though, I think we're going to take people on a new destination, which is how often did the FBI get blocked in trying to investigate Hillary Clinton corruption at the Clinton Foundation? You're going to be shocked by the answer.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be shocked by the answer, John. And the reason I might not be shocked is because I'm kind of imagining that the very same people who were protecting James Comey and others in their criminal activities as they were getting Trump, quote unquote, might, be the very same people that were protecting Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton from any serious legal repercussions to the money laundering, influence peddling scheme better known as the Clinton Global Initiative or the Clinton Global Foundation. I think they were two separate entities, if memory serves, and it doesn't really matter. It all folded the minute Hillary lost the election. So, right? So it wasn't a real charity. It wasn't the Red Cross. States like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, other countries as well, maybe less friendly countries, even if you can say that, wrote a lot of checks, hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe $2 billion total, I think was the number, Robbie. But anyway, there's a metric ton of cash running through that, through the Clinton coffers. And it was all just a brazen pay-to-play scheme. And, somebody would send $100 million, and next thing you know, they had a meeting with Obama, they had a meeting with Hillary. Hillary flew to visit them, blah, blah, blah. And she was peddling her future influence, not her current influence as Secretary of State, as much as her future influence as the anointed successor of Mr. Barack Obama. And, then this guy comes out of the blue, this orange guy, this buffoon, fool, clown, all the names that they, spilled out, Nazi, fascist. He comes into the mix. Mr. 1%, ha, 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 he's never going to become president, they all said. And ta-da! November of 2016, Trump wins. And instead of these people just going, okay, we need to do a self-assessment. Clearly, we ran the wrong candidate. We got to look in the mirror, a little bit of soul searching, go drink some ayahuasca in the jungle, whatever it takes, right? Instead of doing any of that, they decided to double down on getting rid of Trump as quickly as possible. And Hillary was pushing it because literally her entire life, the hundreds of millions of dollar lifestyle that she'd grown accustomed to with Bill was about to evaporate. So this story is going to get even worse. And I'm telling you as a trial lawyer, okay, why I'm more encouraged about not just arrests, but perhaps even convictions, happening. And it's because the story is starting to get really good. You've got some clear villains. These people are not likable. They're very sanctimonious. James Comey is maybe, and this is a high standard, a high bar. He might be the most insufferably sanctimonious person in all of DC. Robbie and I decided that is very likely the case. But I'm leaving that there. So they're not likable. And I'm already seeing how you create the story arc, how you tell this story to the jury, and how you say, listen, it's not about whether you like Trump or don't like Trump. This is our country at stake. And you find a prosecutor, you find the right people to prosecute this. I mean, I'm telling you, somewhere, someplace, somebody is going down. And particularly, and thank our lucky stripes that they brought that ridiculous Mar-a-Lago raid on Trump in 22, in August 8th, 2022, because that, just to repeat again, for those of you joining us, this is that brought the nexus of this conspiracy shifted a little bit away from DC, and brought some of the more recent overt acts of the conspiracy into a jurisdiction that is far less Democrat friendly than the District of Columbia. By the way, I have this thought. We'll get to what's going on in DC later. You almost think, if you give Trump any credit, if you think that Trump is a smart guy, and you have to, at some point, even if you hate the man, you have to recognize he's not an idiot. Let me say this. To what extent is him cleaning up the District of Columbia a part of a strategy to improve his chances with the District of Columbia jury pool when it comes to prosecuting people like Comey, if those prosecutions have to take place there? It's food for thought. That's all I'm saying. It's something to think about. By the way, Matt Taibbi agrees with me on the likelihood of prosecutions, and he's more encouraged than ever. I'll bring you that when we return. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Hi, Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Okay, folks, getting right to it. It's absolute madness coming out of D.C. So Matt Taibbi, who's, of course, a former lefty journalist who's been disenchanted with the left in the post-COVID era, has come to his senses and is now a great voice of reason in the new media landscape, predicts indictments coming. This is late Tuesday afternoon, yesterday, on the Cuomo Project podcast. So this is Chris Cuomo, Matt Taibbi, having a little conversation. And as these are, I think, two lifelong registered Democrats, so, it's not for nothing.
I think there are going to be indictments. I was very skeptical on that question even a couple of weeks ago, but I have heard repeatedly from these folks that they understand that this is not a hearts and minds contest, and that they are not doing this for show, and that if they don't end up in a courtroom, that this will be a massive political failure for them. So I do think that there will be significant indictments. I just don't know what for. I mean, I think that's a very important question to ask right now. We know a grand jury has been convened, but they haven't really given us a strong indication about what crimes they might be investigating.
It has to be that. I mean, that's what we've seen with all of these things. I mean, even the Durham thing that just came up, the cases that he made, right? The guy pleaded guilty to him with an email. And then the other two guys, it was, you lied to us, and they lost both cases. So, that's what it always comes down to.
So that's a good point. But what I've heard from these folks is that they understand how the optics of that and what that looks like to voters. And they are going to try for, I think, something more substantive, even if it comes up short.
I've always been skeptical of getting the conviction in D.C., let's say, or New York, right? I'm a realist, folks. It's all I can do. I don't, it's not. I don't live in a universe of rainbows and unicorn farts. So, so I'm looking at this. I'm going, okay, look, that's a 94% Democrat, jury pool. So what's going to happen? But we are in a radically different place than when John Durham was completing his investigation. John Durham, first of all, got, one scalp, okay, and tried to convict one or two other people. Certainly remember the one guy who lied and is a lawyer, an attorney. It was a big deal. And a jury, point of fact, a jury in D.C. acquitted him. And they did it largely for political reasons. Now, the timing of the trial coincided at a place where Trump was sort of at his darkest moment. It was in his post-presidency period. It was in, 21, 22, right on Mar-a-Lago, sort of the peak of, oh my gosh, what's Trump doing? Everywhere you go to media, nobody was giving Trump any kudos for anything. Actually, quite the opposite. It has to be said, we are in a completely different place today than we were back then. Now, TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, is still real. The people out there who despise Trump, and I got into it today with a friend, somebody who have kind of been friendly on Instagram for years over cars and like normal stuff. And I'm sure you folks have this happen from time to time. Just the guy comes at me with, he just keeps sending me negative stories about Las Vegas dying, negative stories about Trump. And it's nonstop, and it's all just stupid, clickbaity stuff. And when I try to engage with him, it's just, you're just a Trump supporter. Okay, so people like that are out there. Their brains permanently damaged, forever lost. And someday, perhaps science will examine their gray matter to determine what exactly went wrong. But more people today like Trump than they ever have. Ignore the polls. That's just a fact. I have now, and we're going to talk about what's going on in D.C., in the District of Columbia, Washington, the crackdown on the crime. More ordinary people are going, man, look at this. Oh, Trump made the homeless people go away. Whoa, this is nice. I'm walking down my street. I have next hour. I'm going to get into this. Now, everything is connected. If you listen to me and you know what this program is about, I try to draw, connections and lines between things that other programs, other hosts treat as separate topics. Everything's connected. Nothing just occurs in a vacuum when it comes to politics. I think it's hugely influential, this crackdown on illegal immigration and certainly on crime. I sort of go hand in hand. And I don't need to hear from the shrill elitist leftists to tell us that Trump is Orange Hitler anymore. Their opinion matters precious little to me. The chance of a prominent, media savvy lib or conservative getting on a future jury for James Comey is nil, at or near nil. Those people get booted off of juries without a lot of discussion. So who's going to end up on the jury? It could be a lot of Democrats. It could be some people of color from the wrong side of town who finally, thanks to Trump, don't have bullets flying over their house, who are sick and tired, finally, of the Democratic monster that has been destroying their neighborhood, that has been destroying their lives, their country, since before they were born. Light bulbs are going off, and sometimes actually, and it's another truth that people don't acknowledge enough. Sometimes it's the ordinary salt of the earth Americans, working class people, poorer folk that have the most common sense. Some of my well-to-do, college-educated friends are absolute morons. And you know this. Just because you went to college doesn't mean that the lights are turning on, okay? And I'm with Matt Taibbi, and I'll go a step further. I sense I sense that there is a chance of convictions. And I'll even say this, Robbie, I'll even go on a ledge today. I sense there is a chance for the first time ever of convictions in the District of Columbia. So, by the way, what is Trump saying about all of this? And let's talk about what's going on in D.C., because, things are getting real there, and people are noticing, which, of course, backs up what I'm saying here about the chances that these Democrats and their Republican co-conspirators, anti-Trump activists, might, in fact, get convicted. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right Show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. I'm telling you, folks, we're living in the greatest of times. When Trump said this was the golden era, he wasn't kidding. Greetings and welcome to the What's Right Show. Sam Mirejovsky here, your host. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. This is where we make radio great again. Now, let me just tell you, everything's connected. Mentioning this just at the end of the hour. If you're just joining us, obviously big news today that more information, more evidence has come out implicating James Comey, among others, in leaking classified information to the media. And this classified information was laundered through intermediaries, one of which was in fact interviewed by the FBI in one of 5 or 6 individual investigations launched into this leaking. And the guy basically says to the FBI, well, I don't remember. I don't remember. He qualifies his denial of having leaked, and any normal person who issues such a equivocating statement to the FBI would end up, at 6 a.m. getting woken up with an arrest warrant. But that did not happen. Did not happen in this instant because, of course, the cabal protected itself. Now, one more thing. I'm just going to say this again because it's very important. I saw a point made, and I reacted to it on social media from a friendly person. I know he meant well. I know this guy. He meant well. But his point was, listen, we as Republicans, we can't get ourselves all worked up about this. We're playing into their hands. So I read this, and I said, well, what do you mean playing into their hands? Well, and this is what he said. Well, this intelligence, so-called intelligence that Schiff and Comey were peddling, and Eric Swalwell, just the whole group, right, was all made up. And we Republicans we're going too far in giving the information against Trump, like I don't know what, whatever. I mean, all of it, but going back to the original PP tape, supposed tape of in the hotel room, right? So that we're giving it too much credibility. That we're saying, well, you leaked this very sensitive information. How dare you? And that we should sort of back off of it. No, and no again. They took crap intel. They took stuff that they basically made up. If you think the Steele dossier wasn't made up, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. They took it and they very clearly laundered it through the intelligence community in order to make that information more credible. Okay? And then once it was classified, what's the presumption? By the way, I'll play this test with any of you right now. You tell me right now. If I tell you something's classified, seems like it might be important. That was the whole problem with the Steele dossier. Nobody ever said, well, this came from the Clinton campaign. Instead, it got bought, literally purchased by the CIA, and Brennan slaps a classification label, done. And then what? And then it all of a sudden now is, this is intel. Trump may be in bed with Putin. Ooh, right? And it became more credible. That they then leaked it in order to discredit Trump is them shooting themselves in their foot, right? That's what they did. They then went and, took this information that probably should never have been classified to begin with, classified it to make it more credible, and then released it in order to get the narrative out and damage Trump. Now it's going to put them in jail. It's beautiful. Absolutely fantastic. Now, Trump today was at the Kennedy Center, and the Kennedy Center is a performing arts center in Washington, D.C., and it is, you think of it sort of as a temple to liberal ego and vanity. The Kennedy Center is a sacred cow of the D.C. political establishment, generally liberals and rhino Republicans. This is where they go to hobnob. They show up there and eat pricey hors d'oeuvres, guffaw, 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 share entertaining stories. The president has his box. And these are the people that are laughing at us common Americans, looking down their noses at us Americans. These are the people that actually despise you and me. They are up on Mount Olympus. We're down somewhere, in the dirt, in the mud, in their eyes. And Trump did something at the beginning of this term that I didn't spend a lot of time covering, but he basically went in there, declared himself the chairman. I think Rick Grinnell is there cleaning the whole thing up. The whole, of course, like anything the Democrats touch, it was a money pit. It was falling apart. He went into their temple, kicked out the Democrats, and is taking it over. And so there's going to be, the awards are coming up, and he's going to preside over it. It was a big announcement. But as part of that announcement, he got asked about Schiff and all of these revelations from the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. And you can tell from the way he's telling the story that he is intending to have something done about it.
I had to go through the Russia hoax, and it was actually, it was a strain on the relationship. I actually told him, I said, they got this phony investigation going on, Russia, totally phony, created by Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, and Hillary Clinton and the whole group of them. And it made it very dangerous for our country because I was unable to really deal with Russia the way we should have been. I'm looking at Pam because I hope something's going to be done about it. These people put our country at great danger. And Adam Schiff, it was all made up. It was a hoax. The Mueller report came out. They all hated me. They had 18 Trump haters, and they said I did nothing wrong. They couldn't believe, they couldn't find anything after years of investigation. It was all a hoax. It was a hoax created by the Democrats, but in particular Schiff and Crooked Hillary, the whole group. And now we've learned all the stuff that's come out over the last 2 months is incredible through intelligence, and hopefully something's going to happen with it. These are people that put our country in danger.
This is exactly right. Now, notice how he says, well, we've just learned over the last couple of months. Trump has known all this stuff from go. If anybody knew that it was nonsense, it's Donaldus Maximus himself. What Trump is actually saying is he's getting up there, says, oh, look, I'm starting to show you all this information. We're learning together about all this stuff. Building the case is one thing. Conditioning the public for full-scale indictments and prosecutions of big-name political figures is another. The two things are happening side by side. I'm convinced Trump and his team knew they already had the goods months ago, right when they got into office. They were prepared for this. They got their hands on the evidence, they started declassifying it, and now we're in the stage, not of leaking it, by the way. You notice the difference? Trump isn't leaking this through John Solomon and Just the News. John Solomon's saying, look, this has been declassified. This has been released. I'm reporting on it. You see the difference? of how Trump Republicans do things versus how the Democrats do it. There's no subterfuge. Trump is declassifying stuff that previously was classified. He has the authority to do that. He's the president of the United States. Whatever. Some of the stuff, by the way, can be declassified by Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel individually in their capacities. But remember, of course, Trump is clearing all of this himself. There is, I will tell you this, absolutely a concerted effort by the administration right now to condition the public on the next steps. And the next steps are prosecutions. Now, how does the D.C. crime crackdown figure in all of this? You're probably thinking, Sam, that's weird. I don't think it does at all. Correction, I believe it does. Because you're going to have to win some hearts and minds in the District of Columbia, not of the elites, not of the talking heads on TV, but ordinary people who might possibly end up being on a jury. And news for you, they're not going to be high-profile people. They're not going to be illegal aliens. They're going to be ordinary folks. And if you clean up the crime in their backyard, they might just like you a little bit more. Up next, I'll get into this. Don't go anywhere. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, the only personal injury firm to trust with your injury case. In a crash, call Sam & Ash, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Your favorite cisgender radio host. What does that mean? That means I'm normal. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome back. Yes, powering through this crazy news today. So, look, the D.C. criminal stuff is something else. I'm loving that Trump is doing this. I'm hearing now in the news that he's going to ask Congress to extend the 30-day period. I mentioned that was the case, that he had 30 days to do this. I suspect the Republicans in Congress will oblige him. We'll see. Now, in the meantime, Trump is demonstrating to ordinary Washingtonians that life can be better. There was a African-American black TikToker who went around town in D.C. and was recording his reaction to the neighborhoods being suddenly very cleaned up. No homeless people. Very surprising, this guy noted. This is really fascinating. So I'm going to play it here. This guy's name is Bump Easy. That's a TikTok moniker. And he basically says here that DC needed the teacher to come put the classroom in order.
Man, down the city is quiet as a church mouse, man. I came all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue this morning. So peaceful, yeah. I don't smell no weed, young. I don't see no homeless people. I mean, I came all the way through the southeast side, all the way down here. You can see now I'm at the White House jump, man. It's quiet, yeah. It's a shame that it takes somebody to have to sit in your classroom in order for you to be in order, yeah. Because that's what it feels like, yeah. You got to be babysitted to do your job, yeah. Stuff been out of control for years. You got to do better, yeah? You got to do better, yeah?
I love the metaphor of being the kid in class who just wants to learn, doesn't care about any of the nonsense. I just want to learn. I just don't want noise. I just want to be here. I just want to sit here and do my thing. And there's some punk, money kid who's like making a big to-do and whatever. And all of a sudden, the teacher, a.k.a. Daddy Trump, walks in the room and says, "You kid, out." Well, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, well, here's the National Guard. I'm sending them in. So this Bump Easy guy says basically, look, this is the proof that the numbers are cooked, that the math that the libs keep putting out there, the math that keeps saying that there's crime was last year at its absolute lowest and whatever, however many years dropped in DC was nonsense.
And y'all keep on posting all these data numbers and things of that nature that y'all see everybody else reposting, the stuff that came from the Metropolitan Police Department and the mayor, yeah. Let me tell you something, yeah. Let me tell you something. You can't be that stupid. You can't be, man. Who enters that information to get that data analysis, yeah? People do. You can enter whatever numbers you want to make whatever report show what, but you can't hide the crime, young. You can't do it. Let me give you something to break it down to you for those that don't understand. I retired from UPS, right? So what they used to do to play with the numbers or whatever, we have mission packages, you'll have drivers over the hours. They'd go in and enter the information and the report would show whatever they needed to show to keep their bonus that week for their bosses not to fire their. So stop believing that stuff.
By the way, it's gotten so bad that even Joe Scarborough got a text from a liberal friend. He reads it on air. Listen to this.
And I want to read you a text from someone who I won't say their name, but they're we'll just say that they're very liberal. And he says, this may sound controversial, but I'm not totally opposed to Trump's National Guard move in D.C. I know he's doing it for politics, but crime remains rampant. I've had too many friends carjacked, shot at. None of us will walk more than 3 blocks after 8 p.m. 13-year-olds are committing many of these crimes. Quite a change from a decade ago when things were much calmer. Well, that actually sounds like the D.C. that I lived in when I lived a block behind the Supreme Court. And, you know, every 3 days, one of my neighbors was getting held up at gunpoint. I mean, there has been a crime problem in D.C.
Yeah, no crap. Tuesday on CNN, liberal S.E. Cupp is frustrated that the Democrats are not respecting reality with their so-called facts when it comes to crime.
I can't tell you how profoundly stupid it is for Democrats to get up with their facts and their figures and their charts and their graphs and say, look, you're safe. Can't you read this chart, idiots? Why are you complaining? I'm showing you right here how safe you are, so shut up and move along. I don't have to tell you how profoundly stupid that is because voters told you how profoundly stupid that was in 2024 when Democrats said, see these economic numbers? The economy's great. What are you complaining about? See these crime numbers? Crime's down. You're safe. See these immigration numbers? Obama deported way more. There's no migrant crisis.
See, this is right. Even Joe Scarborough, S.E. Cupp, and others are going on and saying, look, I mean, you can't keep telling us that the sky is blue and whatever when it's nighttime, or telling us that the sun is up when the sun is down, whatever. You can't continue to deny reality. And that's exactly what the left has done. They did it, by the way. They really, really, really extended themselves with COVID. COVID, when we examine it, I think in another 5 years, 10 years, we will see COVID and the government response to COVID as an extension of the Russia collusion hoax, where the Democrats put everything they had on the table, where they sacrificed literally whatever remaining shreds of credibility they had just to create conditions that would eliminate Trump as a political force. It was all part in the same attack, strategy. It's a different prong. And so it has the same elements as obviously as denialism, you know, that Trump wasn't an asset of Russia, denialism that COVID actually wasn't as deadly as people thought, denialism now that crime isn't really that bad. The Democratic Party has become the party of just bald-faced lie after lie after lie, and even smart leftists now who are trying to they're trying to distance themselves now from this. Some Democrats, and maintain some credibility because it's getting too much. You can't possibly double down on this. Now, deep embedded in this, beyond just Trump resistance, is condescension. I mentioned the Kennedy Center and how Trump has taken over the Kennedy Center, and the libs are all getting the vapors because he's in their temple. He's in this august building named after Kennedy himself. Trump, the orange Hitler, can't be in here doing this stuff. What the hell? Well, you know, the mask is coming off, folks. And now that we're at the late stages of the Democratic Party, and these prosecutions are looming, and they're starting to say the quiet stuff out loud. I'll play a clip for you when we come back that shows exactly what I mean. All right, I'm here. Don't worry. I want to say a word about why I originally went to support President Trump. What won me over with Trump? Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. It fits into this whole debate on what's going to happen with these prosecutions, what is going on in D.C., and the aptitude, this is the key word, the aptitude of the Democratic Party to actually fight against this. My sense following George W. Bush being in office was sort of, obviously, I was disappointed that Obama was elected. Bush was done, and he faded. He just left the stage. And as Obama was destroying the country, Bush was nowhere to be seen. And this was one of the first really big things that disappointed me, fundamentally, as a Republican, as somebody who had voted for Bush not once, but twice. I felt he had a duty to speak up for the country. But he was playing along with the system. He was part of the system. And I became acutely aware that it wasn't as much of a right and a left issue as an elites. Okay? The elites with power versus the rest of us. And don't get me wrong, I've lived a privileged life, and I have since this time in my life done well for myself, and I would argue that I have a little bit more power than I did when I was in my 20s. I certainly have a little bit more power than many people out there, and I recognize that, and I'm grateful for it. I've also made it happen for me, so I'm kind of proud of it. But my power is nothing compared to what the people in D.C. have. That is real power. They really do control us. And the people that are given this power, in my view, also have, going together with that power, a responsibility to use it wisely. They have a responsibility to represent us in D.C. with dignity, with honor, to be truthful. I know, don't laugh, but I'm sorry. I mean, this is what I expect. And they're supposed to go to D.C. and fight for us. They all say that they're going to, but it's almost always a load of crap. You know who's fighting for us? Donald J. Trump. Really. And that's why more Democrats have come over to the Republican movement with Donald Trump than with any other Republican in my lifetime, save for perhaps Ronald Reagan. And I would argue that Trump is making inroads where Reagan didn't. Now, going back to the 2016 campaign, going back to the early stages of Trump running for president, I remember reading a piece, and I believe it was in the National Review, written by country club waspy Republicans, high-minded Bush acolyte Republicans, who were describing the insufferable experience of attending a Trump political rally. Now, one of the benefits of having me as your host is that I remember things from the past and I'm able to bring them back to the present. You're probably thinking, well, who cares about what the National Review wrote back then? I'm going to tell you why it matters. They wrote this big, long piece about sitting there at the Trump rally and that it was much more like some hillbilly concert and there weren't any seats saved for the VIPs, that the front row of the rally was given away to the plebs. That means you, me, right? Trump supporters. There were no big donor seat sections. There were no hors d'oeuvres. There wasn't a VIP section cordoned off for, for the media. Trump did this for the people. Trump did this for the people. That's who his audience was. It was never about the donors. It was never about the media. It was never about any of it. It won me over. I loved it instantly. In fact, the more that, the media complained and even the Republican media complained, the happier I was. Now, the debate over D.C., again, what's the setup? The Democrats and even a lot of Republicans, establishment Republicans are going, what is Trump needs? D.C. is safe. They keep saying this. The statistics are safe. What is Trump? They do not want to be shown up as having been able to have eliminated criminal activity, homeless encampments, et cetera, making cities safer just by virtue of governing. They do not want Trump showing them up. But the mask is off because suddenly their conceit and their contempt for us, ordinary people, comes out. Listen to this guy. This clip really captures it. This was on Fox News. Jim Kessler, a former Schumer policy aide, was talking to John Roberts, and he's trying to make an argument here that really Trump is arguing about a whole lot of nothing. But wait for the bottom part. The end of this clip is going to blow your mind.
But do you feel safe here? I feel safe in this city. I live in a neighborhood. Because I look over my shoulder every day. Well, maybe you look over your shoulder, but I'll tell you something. Here are two things that could be done to make this city safer. $1.1 billion was stolen from D.C. in the last budget bill. Give us that money back. We are down 400 police officers from last year. And 900 from our peak because stealing our money away. So let's get our local. It had nothing to do with defunding the police. No, it had nothing to do with defunding the police. It had to do taking our money away, our taxpayer dollars here. If people are afraid to come to D.C., go to Disney World, get fat, eat French fries. I don't care. I've lived here 37 years. I am not afraid. I live in the city. I'm not afraid of this city. If you're afraid, go ahead. Leave your fear someplace else.
He just committed suicide on television. What the hell was that? Oh, well, Sam, if you're complaining about D.C., don't come here. Get fat at Disney World. F you. By the way, I love Disney World. Okay, I'm going to admit it. Not one of these, not a phony, right, folks? I go to Disney World. Love it. Not going to get into a long discussion about that. Do I eat the fries and get fat? No. I walk like 25,000 steps a day. But I have fun. I drink a little bit. What is? And by the way, this whole $1 billion stolen 1.1 is absurd. The CR in March froze the DC budget at 2024 levels. They decided to spend money on something other than police. They cut the police. What the hell is this guy talking about? And that's on the local DC lawmakers. That's on the city council. But the contempt that they have for us is barely concealed. And who are they talking to? You want to go to Disney World, just get fat. Just go to Disney World and get fat. Do you hear that TikToker going through? He's not a svelte man. I'm just observing from the clip. African-American guy. Maybe he likes to go to Disney World. Maybe he likes to eat a little bit. Maybe he, is not a sophisticate. He's not a season ticket holder at the Kennedy Center. But he cares that his city's getting cleaned up. Right? Where was it? This was another rant on Monday. There's a podcast, a Bravo reality TV star, these insufferable women that make it big time because they get selected to have their lives destroyed via reality TV. So her name is Jennifer Welsh. And candidly, Robbie, I had no idea who this person is, but this has gone viral, this rant of hers. She's talking about immigration, Trump, immigration. By the way, if you are a Trump supporter and you like immigration enforcement, you have forfeited the right to eat in a Mexican restaurant. And listen to how she describes us Trump supporters.
I've had it with white people that triple trumped, that have the nerve and the audacity to walk into a Mexican restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, an Indian restaurant, go to perhaps their gay hairdresser. I don't think you should be able to enjoy anything but Cracker Barrel. And if you want to triple Trump and you want to browbeat DEI and you want to browbeat gay people and you want to browbeat black people as you've been doing for 400 years, and you want to browbeat this generation of immigrants that come over here and open up businesses earnestly, pay their taxes, you want to demonize them and call them rapists and felons and all this when the felon is the teeny weeny mushroom piece of Cankle's McTaco tits at the top of the ticket. I have had it from top to bottom. White people that triple Trump should be banned, boycotted from enjoying the best thing that America has to offer, which is multiculturalism. Get your fat asses out of the Mexican restaurant, get your fat asses over to Cracker Barrel, because nobody wants to see your smug, teeny weeny, pink arm, big gut around. Nobody wants to see that. No one.
Wow. The contempt that liberals have for us is unbelievable. And look, hey, listen, I just don't want to be told how to live my life. I don't, over the last 5 years, there are so many specific ways that the left has made my life miserable. The left ousted me from the state I loved and I grew up in. I left California because of what leftists like this Botox-faced gorilla, if we're going to throw around insults, did to my state. California is one of the most successful, booming places in the country. The left destroyed it. Now, I'm for the better for it. Now I live in Nevada, love Las Vegas. I have it made in the shade. But that's a concrete thing that in the last 5 years, Democrats did to me. Guess what else the left did to me? They almost took my business, my livelihood in the midst of COVID, made me go crazy. My kids missed out on school. They destroyed a generation of young people just so that they could shut the country down, get funny money ballots out there, and win the election, boot Trump from office because they didn't like the orange man. And kind of now that we're talking about James Comey and all of these revelations about Schiff and others, these people hijacked the entire government to suit their political interest. These people are terrorists. And I don't actually look at my liberal friends and go, you don't deserve to be in America. I don't look at them and say, you forfeited your right to breathe free air, you fascist-loving dumb idiot. I don't ever say anything like that. I feel like we gotta convince our friends on the other side that what we believe is right. But these people hate us. These people loathe us. If you voted for Trump, if you think what Trump is doing is good, if you want a safe neighborhood, gosh forbid you want your kids in a good school, well then you know what? You're a fat-gutted, French fry noshing, small-minded, fascist, racist, Disney World loving redneck. I don't know if I got all the descriptors in, but I don't know. And again, I just feel so attacked because I do not have a big gut, and I love Disney World. So I feel like these two clans have really missed the mark with me. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840. Be right back in a moment. Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, that's me, Sam Mirejovsky, behind the What's Right microphone. This hour of the program brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam & Ash, the only law firm to trust for your personal injury case. 702-820-1234. because you deserve what's right. Okay, friends, very important. There's been a development. Guess what happened in Washington, D.C. when Trump took it over? Well, D.C. was, before the takeover, a sanctuary city, so declared by the lunatic Democrats that ruled there once upon a time. Well, Tom Homan did an interview about an hour ago, and, well, I think things are a little bit different now.
I think D.C. under federal control is not going to be a sanctuary city. We're working with the police hand in hand. When we encounter a criminal, illegal alien, that we turned over to ICE. And that's the way it should be. I mean, I'm not saying every illegal alien in D.C. is a criminal, but many are. So these are people we're going to focus on. Illegal alien, criminal safety threat in D.C. is not going to be protected. There's no sanctuary for these people in the city of D.C.
There it is. Again, how's this going to play? Well, removing criminals from the street, liquidating them from neighborhoods, making criminals be afraid again of law enforcement. This is all before any meaningful changes to sentencing laws and giving juveniles a free pass. Before any of that gets sorted out, you're basically here making the city more safe. This is going to be hugely persuasive to maybe some people who are or formerly didn't like Trump, who also might end up on a future jury for James Comey when he is being tried for leaking classified information, open and shut case. They may not be as anti-Trump as a jury like that would have been some time back. This is something to watch. Now, here's what else I'm watching. I'm looking at this thing down in Texas. These Democrats never had a plan. The latest news is that apparently they're coming back, tails tucked between their legs. Apparently, they're on their way back. ABC News in Houston claimed that Democrats believe that they've accomplished their mission by killing the first special session and raising, quote unquote, national awareness about the mid-decade redistricting effort. What? That's a success? Oh, we raised awareness of gerrymandering in every liberal left-wing state. We got Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, to turn into a blithering idiot and once again, and throw down ridiculous ultimatums and threaten things he may never be able to actually see through in his state. So once they returned, the redistricting is done. The Senate passed it yesterday. It's now basically over. And by the way, Paxton, the Attorney General of New York, explained why Beto O'Rourke is in deep trouble with his fundraising. You know, Beto got out there, Beto, whatever his name is, he goes, okay, I'm gonna raise money and help these lawmakers. Only you are giving lawmakers money to affect their actions as a lawmaker, which is effectively a bribe.
The judge gave him a direct order, which was you can no longer fundraise. And in his rally, he clearly violated that order. It's not even questionable. So, look, we're just following the law. He is not following the law, and that's where his problems lie, not with me. My job is to enforce the law, and that's exactly what I plan on doing.
Well, it sounds like somebody's going to get arrested. So everywhere I look right now, the Democrats are losing. Tell me one thing, and you can email me. I'll if you give me an example of where Democrats are winning, I will read it on air tomorrow. Sam@whatsrightshow.com. But I don't see a single place where the Democrats are doing anything that is achieving any meaningful victory. It's all performance art. The theater kids have run amok. And worse yet, they've run out of their fraud runway that they've had, their long-established patterns and practices of how to fight Trump. They're losing in the courts, and their entire cabal is breaking up and splintering, and there's going to be raids, there's going to be arrests, there's going to be prosecutions, people are going to turn state's witness, you're going to get them to turn on each other. Remember, I go back to a case I once sat on as a juror before I was in law school. I was first year of law school. I sat on a jury, and it was a criminal case. And the prosecutor gets up there, and I guess all the different criminal co-conspirators in the case, it all began snitching on each other. And he says, "There's no honor among thieves." And it is exactly what's going to happen here. These people are crooks. They're thieves. They're liars. I think it's already started. I mentioned it yesterday. Now it seems to be actually real that Brennan has fled the country. That's right. John Brennan, whose fingerprints are all over this, who's one of the key co-conspirators here, is in Austria. He's holed up in some little studio that MSNBC's created over there so he can appear as though he's in America, but apparently, according to some reports, has fled the jurisdiction and has no interest in returning. I don't know. I mean, the Austrians will return him. I think we'll have to promise we won't execute him. So I'll tell you what, I accept. We won't execute Brennan. We'll just put him in jail for the rest of his natural life. All right, friends, I'll see you tomorrow. But lots going on. It's wild out there. I will be at the cutting edge of this and let you know everything you need to know about all of this going on. And I'm telling you, it's good. All of it is good stuff. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Sam at whatsrightshow.com. Find me on X. Follow me on X. Show news, everything. My pithy commentary. Find me there.